Welcome back, everyone, to Brownsville in Motion, an episode I've been meaning to do for a long time, but we finally made it to the studio. I'm Dr. Rose Gowen, and today we're going to talk about trees. I think everyone likes trees and shade and all of that, but we're going to explore a little bit about what that means in Brownsville. With me today, I have Hunter Lohse. I've known you for a long time, Hunter, and I know you are exceptionally trained in the area of trees. What is your profession? Who are you, and what is your profession?
Sure. Hi. Thanks, Rose. Thanks for having me. My name is Hunter Lohse. I am a licensed landscape architect, one of only two in the Rio Grande Valley, and I'm the only license holder in Cameron County. And I'm also a certified arborist and a certified municipal tree specialist from the International Society of Arboriculture. So I started in landscape architecture and made a brief segue into urban forestry and really fell in love with the just the planning, the strategizing of how to increase the urban tree canopy of a municipality. Other than that, 42 and single.
All important, all important. So what are that's a lot of words there that I just think the tree's pretty. I don't know all of the things about it that you do. With someone of your expertise, give us an idea of what kind of projects you can do. I mean, what is the range of what you can do? Are you talking homes? Are you talking businesses, parks? What is your expertise field, so to speak, or the broadness of it?
Oh, landscape architecture is quite a broad array. So it's really the design of everything outside of the building. So it's really important because that is, aside from the facade of a building, that is the customer or user experience as they enter the parking lot and go into a building or into a park or a school or a home. And so it's really everything that doesn't have air conditioned is designed by a landscape architect, usually. It's a little bit different down here just because there's so few of us. But I'm hoping that more people will understand the value of landscape architecture in the valley and bring more talent down here um, to do it.
So, to be a landscape architect, do you have a degree in architecture and also in landscape, or is it totally separate?
It's totally separate.
Okay.
It's so I have a master's degree in landscape architecture, and then there is a work requirement that differs by states, but I have to work under a licensed landscape architect for so many years, and then I have to take four tests.
Okay.
So
That's pretty much. I mean, that's a lot.
it's a lot. Yes, it is a lot, and it is a financial burden, and there is a lack of diversity, especially socioeconomic diversity in the field because of the financial burden. And I hope that in my practice, I'm able to help any young designers ease that burden because the tests are very expensive, the study materials are very expensive, and the education is also expensive.
So, how many years does it typically take, assuming that the person goes continually through school?
Sure. So between 5 and 6 years.
Okay, so it's not an overnight
No.
2 year degree by certainly any means. So, talk to us about trees. Let's do trees.
Okay.
What's the big deal? Why is a tree just beautiful, or is there more to it than that?
Well, I mean, they are beautiful. There's no question about that. But trees are awesome. They are some of the most valuable parts of our ecosystem. So trees, they provide us oxygen by converting CO2 into O2, and but they also do a bunch of other really cool processes as well. So when we have stormwater flooding and that water is infiltrated into the ground near a tree, the tree will absorb all of that water and the pollutants that are in that water, and then it'll eventually evapotranspirate the water it's absorbed, but those toxins are all held into the tree itself, and so that prevents a lot of that pollution from sinking down into our aquifer.
Okay.
And as we keep continuing to pump more groundwater because that is kind of right now our water solution for the Rio Grande Valley is to tap into our underground aquifer. We need to try to keep those those points of saturation as clean as possible.
That's interesting. So I think, growing up here in Brownsville myself, and I'm certainly a lot older than you are, I think of trees, I think of palm trees, which are lovely. There's nothing, I don't have anything against palm trees. But I do remember my father and mother used to plant a tree every year on Arbor Day in our yard. And some mostly they were ash trees or
Mhm.
fruit trees. What does Brownsville need? Do we need more? I know that's a kind of a loaded question. Do we need more palm trees? Do we need more shade trees? What does our canopy look like?
Sure. So we'll start with palm trees. Our native palm are the sable palms,
Hmm.
which are um, a larger palm. They grow a little more slowly, but they provide more shade than the Washingtonias, which are
Sure.
the really tall, skinny ones. And so I really support the planting of those just because we were once a sable palm forest along the Rio Grande, and they are a key part of our ecosystem. They provide uh, when they flower, they provide pollen for all sorts of insects and bats, and then also they're home to so many different creatures. If anyone drives down the on Ringgold next to the Gladys Porter Zoo at Dean Porter Park, there are some beautiful old sables, and every year it's a nesting site
I've seen that.
for um, for the cormorants, the egrets, and I can't remember what the third one is, but they come every year, and it's really great to see. This year looks like a really successful year. Last year was terrible. There was a huge windstorm and it blew so many birds off the nest, and it was just really tragic.
Oh.
But hopefully this year we will kind of bypass any windstorms in that key development phase. But um, so I love sable palms. One thing I will recommend, and this is not the most popular opinion, but with a palm tree, they're designed um, to have skirts or beards, is what we call them.
The dead
The
branches.
dead branches,
Okay.
and those are great places for bats and for birds and other things to take nest in, to roost in. And so I would definitely advise people to start thinking a little differently about what you want your palm trees to look like. Every time someone climbs up a palm tree with spikes on, that's damaging the trunk of the palm tree. So it just becomes more and more weak as people continue to climb it. And it's really not necessary. I understand that with Washingtonias, they drop a lot of fronds, but most of the time when you leave a skirt intact, they kind of hold it together for the
Mm.
tree. And sable palms are great because they don't drop their fronds like Washingtonias. They kind of end up just sticking out, and then everything kind of falls off except the last bit of it. Um, and it makes a really cool design. If I definitely recommend going out to the sable palm sanctuary to have a look at what our old growth sable palm forests look like, and just see what a natural palm looks like without all the pruning. It's still a very beautiful tree.
Oh, yeah. And not to mention, there's a cost to getting people to climb up your palm trees and
Absolutely.
trim them. And if you have a lot of palm trees in your yard, it can really be pricey. So palms are beautiful. Our tree canopy in the city, are you able to analyze not just where there are trees and where they're not, but where certain kinds of trees are? Tell us how that analysis works.
Sure. So Brownsville was really lucky. 2 years ago, they were selected as a city that would participate in this geospatial 65 analysis, and that was a tree canopy analysis of, I believe, 65 cities in the state of Texas.
Okay.
And what it told us was that we have about 13% tree canopy coverage, which for a city of our size is great.
Oh,
Um, it's
okay.
it's
Because it
not
sounds low, 13%.
it's not ideal. I
Okay.
mean, so we what the target for most municipal arbor programs are 30%,
Okay.
and so we're less than halfway there. But as far as our tree canopy coverage compared to every other city, we had the best tree canopy coverage in the Rio Grande Valley, and we had the most diversity of tree species
Terrific.
here. So that's going to be really, really important, especially with we have the emerald ash borer, which is an insect that that feeds off ash trees, and it has been pretty detrimental to the ash population on the East Coast.
Mhm.
But we and you know most we've got a lot of ash trees here. We haven't had the borer come down here, but it from what I am told, it is not a question of if, it's just when. So ash trees are something that we should probably be plant sparingly unless we know that this is like a cultivar of a that is resistant to the ash borer, but that
Okay.
has not been developed quite yet. Uh, Another tree disease that we are looking out for is oak wilt disease, and that's found mostly in central Texas.
Mhm.
And it's spread by insects from one infected tree to another, I believe. And um, once the tree has it, it always has it. And so it really for a large live oak or uh, most of the native Texas oaks are susceptible. It can be pretty detrimental. So we need to rethink about how we're planting oak trees in Brownsville because, um, again, luckily right now there is a large gap naturally where the native range of the oak stops, which is right around, the checkpoint. You
Okay.
go to that rest stop right after the checkpoint, there's all those oak trees. And that's kind of really where they start to fade off. And then we get into our Rio Grande Valley. So that natural gap has allowed us to kind of,
Stave that off. Yeah.
exactly. Um, so there is a oak wilt resistant species of oak from Mexico, the Monterey white oak,
Hmm.
which is something that I would expect to see more of here in our local nurseries because that is oak wilt resistance, and they're beautiful shape. They grow taller and have that more of a columnar shape than live oaks like to spread out
Hmm.
and stay pretty low for a tree. So I think we we're in good shape for our existing tree canopy, but we have to also plan for the trees that are aging out. Palm Boulevard's a great example.
Yeah.
All of
Hmm.
those trees are old trees, and there's very few young trees. So um, we should probably think about the succession planting of Palm Boulevard. And again, what types of palms do we want to plant? Do we want to plant our native sable palms that
Right.
provide a little bit more shade? Or do we pay homage to the history and try to plant the Washingtonias? I think from a cleanup standpoint, it seems like sables would probably be the more economical answer because
Hmm.
they don't have the frond drop that the Washingtonias do. And just some of our parks, Lincoln Park is a great example with those all those mature ash trees.
Right.
And so we really need to start thinking about how we're going to incorporate trees into some of these parks with the large trees that uh, might not be here for very much longer.
Okay. So dad was okay to choose ash trees back then, but maybe not so much these days with the pests that you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Ash trees are great. I would definitely. I hate to say don't plant ash trees
Sure.
because they're really important for our ecosystem, and they're one of our larger shade trees, and so um, it certainly would be a shame to not have any more ash trees. But just if you plant an ash tree, it's better to have an ash tree maybe away from other ash trees. If you don't have other
Okay.
ash trees next to you, that's probably a better spot to plant
Okay,
one.
that's a good tip. That's a good tip. If you look at Brownsville overall, of course, there's four political districts, right? District one, two, three, four. Would you say that the tree canopy is healthy or as healthy across the board, or is one district lagging behind the other? What do you think about that?
Sure. Districts 1 and 4 are doing pretty good. So that's uh,
Southmost and
Southmost and
hmm
downtown. Um, those those two districts have pretty great tree canopy. Um, it's very interesting. Most cities, there is a correlation between socioeconomics and the amount of tree canopy coverage. So
okay.
usually, typically, lower socioeconomic groups have less trees in their neighborhood, and then it goes up as income increases. There's more trees.
Right.
However, in Brownsville, we have this kind of bell curve, upside down bell, where um, we have great tree canopy coverage in lower income neighborhoods, and then new middle income neighborhoods have almost no trees, and then some of um, and then as income increases, the trees go back up to higher levels. So it's important to really look at your neighborhoods and start planting trees. There's an old Chinese proverb, supposedly, I don't know, I saw this online, but that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time to plant a tree is now. And
Okay.
I agree that with that. The great thing about trees is that there's a lot of kind of um misconceptions about trees as far as how big you need to plant one. So if you buy a 3 inch caliper tree, which is typically a 8 to 10 foot tall tree with 3 inches width of the
Diameter or 3 inches around?
diameter,
Okay.
yeah, so we call that caliper. And so a 3 inch caliper tree um, is much bigger than a 1 inch caliper tree. However, the 1 inch caliper tree is more likely to establish itself faster and end up outpacing the growth of a 3 inch caliper tree.
Why? Why is that?
It takes when you move a trees don't love to be moved.
Okay.
Some trees don't mind it as much as other trees, but in general, they don't prefer to be moved. And so it just takes those larger trees a longer time for their root system to grow large enough to start supporting growth in that tree.
Okay.
Whereas a smaller tree, those roots have need less time to start getting to a size in which they can support the growth of a larger tree.
I did not know that. I always thought buy a bigger one because it's established and it's not going to die, as opposed to a little one that may be a weakling. So that's cool. That's a tip. So that's a great piece of knowledge for a homeowner, maybe that bought a middle income area new home with very few trees and very few bushes in their yard. So for the homeowner, what would you tell them in terms of how do they think about trees if they have a standard lot? Should they think about 5 trees, 10 trees? I mean, I know it's budget related, but
Mm-hmm.
are there basic guides that you should say, you should definitely think about this?
There are so the Unified Development Code does require a certain amount of trees for a single family home. Unfortunately, that hasn't been enforced, which is why we have treeless neighborhoods. And so the what I would say is it's always important to have trees in your front yard because you want to shade the sidewalk
Okay.
so that people can enjoy walking around.
Mm-hmm.
Also gives you a little bit more privacy, sets you back from the street.
Street. Mm-hmm.
And then um, trees on the west side of your house will eventually help lower your air conditioning bills because you're creating shade during the hottest part of the day
Okay.
on your house.
Okay.
And so planting trees on the west and north side will help with some of the summer heat. And I would, it's really up to how much space you have and the size of tree. So every tree is going to have a different mature size. And so, um, sorry, every tree will have a different size at maturity. And so making sure that when you're purchasing your tree, you're talking to your supplier, I'll make a personal recommendation. I really love buying trees from Simmons Tree Farm. Audrey Simmons, it's a family owned business, and she has done a really great job of expanding the operation from an oak farm to really start doing more native trees. They do a lot of wild harvesting. So if there's a property that's being cleared and there are viable trees that could be sold,
Hmm.
they will go in and remove them and then bring them back onto their site until they're ready to be
Okay.
sold. So you can get some really cool stuff like anakwas, ebonies, the really Bases Adelia, which is a great small tree. It's going to be the tree du jour in a bit. They're starting to catch on. They're very cool looking.
What's it called again?
Vases Adelia.
The
It's also
Macy's
known
Adelia.
as what was lime prickly ash. Um, Now, is it a lime tree or an ash tree? I'm not sure. But or no, it's not. But that's just a name somebody gave it
And
one time.
that is a native tree or
It is. It is a native tree. It's also an endangered tree
oh my.
because they don't grow tall, so they also don't meet preservation requirements.
Mhm.
The largest of them would not meet that threshold for preservation. So, uh, but they have a beautiful shape. They have a beautiful bark. Uh, the plant. I don't know. Have you been to the desert or like West Texas?
Yes.
Ocotillo.
Okay.
The okay. So it looks like a tree version of Ocotillo, where it has this really cool shape and then tiny little leaves. And when it gets too dry, it just dumps
Drops
all
its
its leaves
leaves.
and then
Okay.
waits until the first rain and then pops them all right back out.
How neat.
And they're really easy to transplant and they don't need hardly any water. So just a very cool tree.
So you can find these at a tree farm like Simmons.
Yes.
Okay. And so if you so you talked about the west side, the north side, the front of your house. How about the east side? Anything special you should think about the east side of your house?
East side is your east side is where, especially if the house is shielding it from the west sun, is an excellent spot to plant anything because you get that great cool morning sun, and by the
Mhm.
time it gets hot, the it's in the shadows of your home. And so that is a great spot to get plants established. Do you get the benefits of the kind of the cooling savings? Not as much, but you are giving your tree a prime condition on the east side of your house.
Okay. And are there trees that we should not be planting, invasive species? Give us an idea of what we should not pick up at the store.
Okay. I don't know if you would pick this up at the store, but they might come accidentally in whatever you're
Okay.
potting because the seeds disperse quickly. But we have the tepewahe tree, which is the great lead tree, and they're really beautiful, quite large, soft branches, so they do have a lot of branch drop, but otherwise a beautiful tree. But there is another species of the same genus called white lead tree, and it looks the same, but it doesn't grow nearly as big and uh, makes hundreds more seeds than a tepewahe would.
Hmm.
And the way you can kind of tell the difference between the two is just how many seed pods are hanging from the branches. If it's, three or four, it's probably a tepewahe. If it's got like, if it's covered in pods, it's probably the white lead tree.
And then the white lead is the one not
That's
to
the
get.
one, yeah, we don't want. It's just a nuisance tree, and it just spreads so quickly. So and it spreads where we don't really want it, like drainage canals and um, alleyways, because then it becomes a nuisance for the homeowners and then also just for the city to maintain them when they start to encroach upon utilities and stuff like that.
So homeowners stay away from that one. And then we recently had some attention to a Brazilian pepper.
Sure.
What was that called?
Yeah, Brazilian pepper tree. So I don't think they sell Brazilian pepper at stores
Okay.
anymore. I think
Okay.
It's been known as an invasive for long enough that I think most people are not selling. I've never seen it sold
Okay.
commercially, but if you have one in your house, at your house, I would definitely recommend getting rid of it. The Brownsville PUB got a grant a few years ago for the removal of Brazilian pepper along the Resaca
Mhm.
frontage. And so they've spent a lot of money and time trying to clear out Brazilian pepper, but it only takes one to survive to start it all up again. And they just make thousands of berries each year.
So what's bad about them?
They so there's nothing really so as
What
a
harm do they do? I guess is what.
what the harm that they do is they overcrowd our native species, and so
Okay.
it's really difficult to compete with it because they grow so fast and so dense
Okay.
and can get tall, so it really starts to all the undergrowth species starts to die off, and then eventually they'll start competing, their root systems will compete with other trees and stress those trees out. So it's just kind of a there's nothing to keep it in check in our ecosystem.
Okay. So that's the harm,
Hmm.
obviously. So we should not be surprised if PUB start remove some. That's understood. Okay, great. So, Hunter, if I'm a homeowner and I'm going to go buy some trees to put in my yard, and what should let's say I go to Home Depot or a tree farm, what should I expect the price differential to be between a 1 inch caliber tree and a 3 inch caliber tree?
Sure, I would expect that a um, a 1 inch caliper tree could have a range from anywhere between 75 and 150, and a 3 inch caliper tree could have a range from 250 to 350. So about $100 per inch. It
Okay.
just depends on the type of tree and especially the rate of growing. So a slow growing tree, one of my favorite trees, the mountain Texas mountain laurel, is a beautiful small tree. It makes purple flowers that smell like grape soda in the spring,
Ooh.
and is a great Texas native. But they grow so slow, and so that would it would be a 1 inch mountain laurel would be more expensive than a 1 inch caliper live oak tree just because of the growth rate. um so it really depends on the type of tree and kind of who you're buying your trees from. I would definitely recommend that if you are trying to buy a tree, uh skip skip Lowe's and Home Depot. That's not really their specialty. And go to a nursery or a tree farm. We've got plenty around.
Mm-hmm.
And and talk to your supplier. The things that you should check when you buy a tree is make sure that it's growing straight. Make sure that when you look down at the pot that it doesn't have a bunch of girdling roots already. So you want to make sure that it's not already root bound in its
Okay.
pot,
Okay.
because that means that they weren't moving it up to the proper
Appropriately.
pot size
Okay.
appropriately. And um, a good rule of thumb as far as planting, you always want to make sure what we call the root flare, which is when you look at a tree, it's the part where it flares out before the roots. And so you want to make sure that that is above
The
soil
dirt.
grade.
Okay.
So if you bury it too low, your tree will die eventually. It'll the root flare will end up rotting because it's not dried out, and then the tree will fail. And people will learn that 10, 20 years down the line, which is a shame
Yeah,
if
really.
you've invested that much time in your trees. So always make sure that you have your root flare is at the top of the soil. uh, Current science says do not add soil amendments. Plant it in the soil in which it's going in. So don't add a bunch of bagged
Mulch or
soil. Well, you add mulch, but
okay.
not till the end. But as far as just in the hole,
Okay, you dig your hole.
yeah, your hole should be twice the size of your tree.
Okay.
So twice the diameter. So if your pot is 2 feet wide, you want a 4 foot hole,
Okay.
and put the tree in the middle. Make sure it's tall enough. If it looks too low, add some dirt and kind of keep placing it until you think you got the right one. Remove the pot. you want to kind of work with your fingers very delicately all the way around the root ball to kind of loosen up those roots
Okay.
and make sure that there aren't any that are circling, and then put in all of the soil that you
Around
dug
it.
up. Yes,
Around it.
and
Okay.
try to make sure, the problem is too, we have very clayey soil,
True.
and so when you're digging it up, it comes out in clods, and so it's really difficult to kind of put back. But um, you can do it slowly, and then water, and then add some more, and then water, and then finally you want to add 3 inches of mulch around your tree. And I think a great way to prevent weeds from coming under your mulch is putting out cardboard first. So, cutting out a circle of cardboard. You want, for a brand new tree, at least 2 feet in, or about 4 feet, about as big as the hole, and lay cardboard down on top of that, and place the mulch on that. 3 inches of mulch will make sure that cardboard doesn't move anywhere. And you want to make sure that you don't see the cardboard because you don't want to
Sure.
see that. But the cardboard will eventually decompose into the soil, and it'll prevent any weeds from coming up. Because that's, I think, one of the most biggest frustrations with mulch is that
Yeah.
it's hard to maintain, especially when things keep coming up, and lawn guys are easy to just weed eat the grass and blow the mulch everywhere.
And so 3 inches is a lot. I mean, and that's a lot of mulch.
Yes.
And then the top of that mulch should not cover the flare
Oh,
as you
yeah. The
described.
mulch should never touch the tree.
Oh, the mulch never
Yeah.
touches a tree.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the we call them mulch volcanoes, where you see the mulch goes up like
Yeah.
in a mountain around the base
Yes,
of a
I've
tree.
seen that.
That's bad.
Okay.
Yeah, because you want to keep trees want their trunks and their root flares to be dry. They don't want to,
Okay.
they can get wet, of course, but they can't stay
Stay
wet.
wet,
Hmm.
right? Okay.
Yeah, that the
So
roots want
so
to
you're gonna
stay.
cover it with mulch, but then leave an I don't know, a crater
Hmm.
around the tree itself.
Exactly.
Okay, I get that. I get that. And then water it. Or you watered
Yes.
it already, but you're gonna water it again.
When you first put a tree in, water it very heavily. Our soil, even though it's very clay, it's still pretty well drained, and so you really want to get a deep watering and make sure that you're watering that tree at least twice a week, really heavily. Um, and so the rule is that you want to uh, water keep your trees watered during the hot seasons at, for 2 growing seasons. So for about two summers for a new tree, you want to make sure that you're watering
A
during the
lot.
really hottest part of the
Okay.
time, and then when it starts to cool off in the fall and winter, we you can kind of taper off the watering, but also just responding to how your tree looks. The biggest way people kill their plants is overwatering. So making sure that there's no standing water, making sure that water is going down after 24 hours. If you still
Hmm.
see standing water after 24 hours, that means your soil is not well drained. So you need to hold off on the heavy watering.
Okay. And then as you time goes on, do you need to refresh the mulch at all, or it's just that first time, or
No, you just want to refresh the mulch every time it starts to. It'll decompose naturally, so every year you could probably put some new mulch on.
okay, every year another 3 inches,
Yeah, or just
or just
make sure
fill
that
it
the
to that.
total is the three
Okay, yeah,
inches. Yeah.
okay, I understand. So those are really good tips. And let's say I'm going to buy 5 trees for my house. I should make them different kinds. Should I buy all the same kind? Is there benefit to variety of what kind of tree I put in?
I would say the more biodiversity, the better. So the
Okay.
more variety, the better. Uh, right now, the slogan of landscape architecture, what our national conference is that if you're not planning for biodiversity, your landscape's already out of date.
Oh, okay.
So, um, you're seeing a trend towards more naturalistic plantings, where you're trying to mimic what is should naturally be occurring, and less trying to tell it what it should be,
Okay.
by planting things that aren't from the
Like all
area.
manicured and different plants. Okay. What about fruit trees? Or I've been to places. I remember I was at an Airbnb in Southern California not that long ago, the big deal in this place was that almost every plant in the backyard was some kind of food or fruit.
Hmm.
And so, is that a thing? Planting, not as a vegetable garden per se, but using food and fruit plants in your landscape. Is that a thing?
Oh, absolutely. Pecans do very well here. I mean, my favorite trees downtown always end up being pecans. I see them in a distance. I'm like, what is that tall tree? And it's usually a pecan tree. And um, I would love to see more pecan trees in Brownsville, just because they are a Texas native. They're not a South Texas native, but birds love them, squirrels love them. They provide great shade.
Yeah.
They have a beautiful form, and pecans are delicious. They're such a healthy nut to have, and when you've got a tree to get to provide you with so many, it's a great way to feed yourself and share with your neighbors and
No,
and stuff.
when we lived near St. Joe, we had a big pecan tree, and people would just stop their car, pull over, and go pick the pecans. And I'm like, what are you doing? But I mean, that's how beloved
Hmm.
pecans are. I'm glad you brought that up. So we also had avocado trees, but I
Hmm.
know there's different varieties. Is there one variety or the other that's better for this region?
Ooh, I'm not the person to ask about fruit production
Okay,
trees. I really don't know that much about it.
okay.
Um, I know there are several mango, avocado, citrus providers
Hmm.
here that are very well versed in who have been experimenting in their yards with the types that they brought down. Um, so I would definitely recommend reaching out to some of um, our suppliers to
Okay.
do
Well,
so.
at that house we had an enormous, like taller than the two-story house, avocado tree, but I didn't like the taste, and I understand it
Hmm.
was not the variety that we typically see here to make guacamole or something delicious. So I wondered if there was a better.
Was it yellow?
It wasn't yellow. It
Uh huh.
was round. It was almost round, and instead of that nubby skin, it was more smooth.
Hmm.
And it was creamy, but it just didn't have that guacamole taste,
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we use Haas avocados as what
Yeah.
we sell. They sell at the store.
Uh-huh.
I know when I used to live in the Philippines, we avocado is served more as a dessert dish. So you would get, and that sounds like, kind of like the avocado we would have. Very creamy.
Yeah.
They would put evaporated milk on it, and
Really?
it was delicious. And then you put it in the fridge and
Uh-huh.
cool it down, and it was like quite a treat. Uh,
Wow.
and then I made guacamole from those to try to, as a cultural exchange. And my host family was not into it.
So these are all really important tips. Would the average homeowner who doesn't have a degree in landscape architecture, where's the best place that they should go, let's say online or books, to learn about these things?
Sure. Well, if you want to do something in person, I would definitely reach out to Mike Heap of Heap's Nursery in Harlingen.
Okay.
He's got a great native plant nursery. He grows trees as well. And he was recently wiped out by the development of the new Quinta Mazatlan project, the
Oh, they
expansion.
bought everything.
They bought everything he had. And but now it's been some time, so he's back up and going. But uh, that's going to be a cool project. That will be one of the defining landscape architecture projects in the Rio Grande Valley. Is that Quinta
Nice.
Mazatlan expansion?
In McAllen. That's in McAllen.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes. So that will it was designed by a pretty renowned landscape architect, Chrissy Tenike, who did some really cool work at the University of Arizona, where I went to school,
Hmm.
and she has such a great feel for how plants work together, and so that really will be interesting. Megamorphosis has really brought some great landscape architects down to the valley to do projects,
Hmm.
and so the South Texas Ecotourism Center is another
That's
example.
beautiful.
That's
Hmm.
Design Workshop out of Houston, a very cool firm,
Hmm.
does a lot of great work, and then they work with local landscape architects. There's Andrew Hefner in McAllen, who is a good friend of mine and it does great work, and he's got a great eye for planting, and so landscape architecture is having a little moment down here, and so I'm really excited for it. But I think I trailed off from your question. What
Where
should
do we
people
look for
do?
research?
Yeah.
No, but those were good. Those are good things to hear because I've never been to Quinta Matzalan.
Oh, you
And
have to
I
go. It's
know,
so
and every
fun.
time I say that, people go, "What?" So now I have another reason to go over there. But where would the average homeowner look for information to
Sure.
educate themselves?
Okay, so our library has a great selection of books, especially on native plants.
Okay.
I at one point I had a little recommendation stand there, but the librarians at the City of Brownsville Library are so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
If you just tell them what you're looking for, they'll be able to find you. But I know the books are there.
Okay.
Um, Also, in Rio Grande City, there's Benito Trevino, who he and his wife live on this beautiful ranch, and they grow native plants and trees. More so, a little bit for that kind of more aridy,
Right.
drier part
Right.
of the Upper Valley. But what is really cool is they will do a tour of their ranch and then also show you how to incorporate native plants into your diet. So, how
Oh,
to make flour out of mesquite beans and
okay.
how to harvest certain berries from certain trees. And so, kind of trailing back onto your question about planting for food, if that is something you're interested, I would definitely recommend getting a hold of
Drive
him
up there. Yeah.
and yeah, get a group of your friends, schedule a tour, and take a day road trip up there. Very it's very beautiful. He's built his home by hand in the border brick style, so it looks like this historic home, but it's not. He built it himself, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just the craftsmanship is incredible. I
How
mean, he's
neat.
just a cool guy.
How neat. Okay, so the let's repeat the name of the nursery in Harlingen, Kemp.
Mike Heap, Heep, and his nursery is Heap's Nursery. And then Benito Trevino in Rio Grande City, and he is Rancho Lomitas Native Plant Nursery in Rio Grande City.
And that one you have to call ahead to make an
Yes.
appointment. Probably should call ahead for both, I guess.
Yeah, call both of them. They'll answer their cell phones.
Okay, and then and locally here in Brownsville, check out Sable Palms to
Yes.
see some native, the way the sables are supposed to grow, so to speak.
Yes, and go to La Posada Park and see our last remaining stand of Montezuma
Montezuma
cypress trees.
cypress, yeah.
That's our city tree is the
Right?
Montezuma cypress, and we used to have a forest of those too, but we lost them all to lumber when we started clearing
Shipbuilding, yeah. I heard
everything.
shipbuilding and home apparently it's really good to build
Oh, I bet.
homes with too.
Yeah, they're beautiful trees. We there were 30 Montezuma cypress planted around Sports Park
Mhm.
last year, so that will be really nice to have around the ponds.
Because
Sports
they have
Park
to
is,
grow close to the water, is my understanding.
yes, they need to be touching wet soil.
Okay, 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 good. And so we want to stay away from the non-native trees and plants as best as we can. We talked about a tree farm to go and visit, or a nursery, and that those are your best bets. And so I think homeowners are armed now with how they can best set up their yard, the west side, the north side. Oh, temperature. That was one thing I was going to say. So you mentioned if it's on the west side of your house or north side, it's shielding your house from the temperature in the heat of the day. So in a city, let's say that has a great tree canopy, what kind of temperature changes happen in that city compared to one that doesn't?
Ooh, good question. So the temperature in the shade can be up to 5 degrees cooler, but it's also the percept like the that's the air temperature, but there's also a difference between the perception of someone that's standing directly in the sun
Mhm.
and who's not directly in the sun, because your clothes are warming up,
Sure.
you're starting to feel hot. So um but what it the real benefit for a large tree canopy is keeping all of our impervious surfaces cool during the day. So as the sun goes over us, it's heating up all of the concrete,
Hmm.
all of the asphalt, all of the buildings. And so at night, that's when all that heat starts to dissipate. One of the things about extreme heat illnesses is it happens at night, not during the day, because that's when all the heat rises and
Oh,
people that are coming home from work can't get cool. Um,
I didn't know that.
yeah, for places that don't have AC, so it's really difficult as because they open their windows, but it's all the heat from the
Sure.
city is radiating off the
Sure.
ground,
Yeah.
and so trees are really good at at the shade will keep all those surfaces cool, so your nighttime temperatures will start to cool down, and you'll see a bigger difference in your nighttime temperatures.
So those are not small things. I mean, that's especially if you don't have AC.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's super important. And the great thing is too is that trees reduce roadway maintenance because the more your streets are baking out in the sun, the more repairs they're going to need down the road because they're eroding faster. But if we are covering them with trees, you're protecting them from a lot of that sun damage.
Another good point. Another fewer potholes.
Exactly.
Everyone can
Yeah.
resonate with that one, right? So if you're like me, Hunter, you study the things that you're passionate about, and when you travel, you check out things, even though you weren't going there on purpose to see anything specifically. I check out all the bike trails when I go wherever it is that I'm going. So of all the projects you've seen around the United States, if you had to pick just one, and I know it's probably really hard just to pick one, which one really knocks your socks off that you think, wow, I never put those things together, but that just really is amazing?
Oh, yeah. It's for a landscape architect, this is going to be a little bit of a cliche answer, but it's the High Line in New York.
Okay.
So, for those of you who don't know what the High Line is, it was a raised train platform on the west side of Manhattan that ran to the meatpacking district.
Hmm.
And so it was decommissioned a long time ago, and but was still just sitting there. And as it aged, there were wildflowers and grasses that started to grow out of it, and it kind of became this little kind of forgotten gem. And so there were a group of people that thought, why don't we turn this into a park so that people could walk
The
this
High Line.
the High
Hmm.
Line, and you would be surrounded in native plants and trees and vegetation, and so through lots of investment, through lots of time, they made their vision come true, and it is a spectacular project. um, it is really cool to experience a city from a raised platform and be surrounded in nature, and then but like within the skyline. So it's a really special project. It really shows what the power of people that want to see something done um, can do. And I would also make that equation or equate that to the Friends of the West Rail Trail
True.
with the Rails to Trail project. Very similar. And yes, so like I would love to kind of take more of the High Line and put some of those elements in at the West Rail Trail or all of our trails, just more wildflower settings, more native grasses and trees to make that experience really feel like you're in nature and not just mowed grass, because mowed grass doesn't look that great and
No,
does not enhance your bike riding experience.
it's not as interesting. You're
Yeah.
you're right, and I think the other thing that will come later to areas like the West Rail is economic development, like it did to the High Line. You can go to unique little places to eat right off of
Yeah.
there, or shop, or even rent an apartment. I'm sure the prices are very very exorbitant in New York, but the same thing as I ride my bike or run along the West Rail Trail someday, I'd like to stop and have a burger, or stop and have a salad,
Hmm.
or have a glass of wine or something like that, and have a bike shop around there to fix a flat so I don't have to, and all of those bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
You can think of all of those things that bring value in
Hmm.
addition to the health values, but not overdone,
Sure.
but in proportion to the surroundings.
I think the biggest mistake Brownsville made was not saving any Resaca frontage
I
for
know.
commercial development.
And we tried to pull some back
Hmm.
a few years ago, and met with huge opposition. It was a
Hmm.
new development, which will remain nameless, along a Resaca, and we wanted to protect a lot like the Hudson development did with the protected. And oh my God, it was a huge coraje that people did not like that at all. So we didn't win that discussion, but when you do it ahead of time, it's so much easier to protect than if
Hmm.
you try to insert it and retrofit it later.
Yeah.
So you've told us a lot. We didn't talk about flowers much. So as far as information about flowers and such, do we need to go to a nursery? Is that where is the best place to decide what kind of flowers to plant in our yard and bushes and things other than trees?
Sure. So there are great resources online. The Lady Bird Johnson uh, Wildflower Center has a plant database, a
Okay.
searchable plant database, so you can find things for your area. There's a great seed shop if you want to start some stuff by seeds. Seedsource.com, that's Native American seed out in Junction, Texas. And they have all sorts of cool things that you can't really find in nurseries. Um, and it tells you what ecoregion these plants are found. So you can really kind of target specifically what would be native to our area. Um, Mike Heaples, loves to talk plants like I like to talk trees, and it's the same with Benito Trevino. But we also have some great resources at the library. There are several wildflower books. Um,
So what was the place repeat the place in Junction,
it's
Texas?
called Native American Seed, and they're kind of the premier native seed distributor
Native
for.
American Seed. Okay.
Yes.
And the Ladybird Johnson, I've been there. That is a cool place.
Yes, if you haven't been to the
Beautiful.
Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center in
You should
Austin, you
go.
need to go.
Definitely, you
Year
should
round,
go.
it is beautiful.
Absolutely. So, thanks so much for joining us. Took us a while to get here, but I'm so glad we made it.
Me
If
too.
there's one thing, what did I forget, and or what is the takeaway that you want folks to take from this conversation?
Get outside more, embrace nature, embrace what the Rio Grande Valley has to offer. Uh, we, our urban design makes it very challenging to experience the outside because we have a lack of shade and a lack of connected sidewalks, and it's very difficult. You have to be very intentional if you want to spend out
Mm-hmm.
time outdoors here, but create a little oasis in your yard so that you can step outside and see all the butterflies and birds and enjoy the shade of a tree. And it makes there are studies after studies show that act being out in nature is great for your physical health, it's great for your mental
That's
health.
right.
And so on top of all the benefits, like these things will all help you to live a healthier lifestyle. um yeah, the saddest thing about living in an apartment is not being able to just step outside under a tree.
Well, yeah, that's
um
true. That's true. Well, I think those are great words to leave by, and that reminds me, put up a bird feeder. We didn't even talk about birds and trees, and and this is a world birding
yes.
site. And my husband didn't never put up a bird feeder or looked at a bird until he retired. And then he started hanging bird feeders in the backyard. And we have a haven that I would never in my wildest dreams.
She's right, I've seen it.
I mean, the effect of just one bird feeder has been enormous. Now he's put up five, so you can imagine. But they sing to you. I mean, there's a
Mhm.
symphony of birds out there. And we've seen things like bald eagles in our backyard, different kinds of hawks, at least a dozen different kinds of warblers, of course, the green parrots, all because he put up one bird feeder and created this little oasis. So those are absolutely beautiful words to close with. So thank you everybody for joining us for another edition, a green edition of Brownsville in Motion. Go out and buy a tree. Check out one of these sites that Hunter spoke about and look at the west side of your house, the north side of your house, and the front yard and see if maybe adding a tree could give you a heads up. Thanks so much.